Greetings and salutations. My name is Zenimus and I am here with Luck today to talk about commission generations.
Well, getting commission and then using it with an AI art.
Yes, we're here to talk about specifically the act of taking a commissioned piece of art and then putting it into something like, how the fuck do you pronounce Gawk? I don't know. And using it to generate different art pieces from it, or Sora, and whether or not that's okay, more or less, is our primary topic.
Brought up because of a recent example of that happening with Moth Dusky and Sonar Snow Cat, in which they commissioned a piece from them and then they threw it into Sora to get like an animated piece of artwork from that.
Which I think is still currently turning because there's still things happening from it.
So don't do that. That's mean and rude.
Please do your best not to threaten people too terribly much. It's not very nice, you know?
Quite
as someone who has both used generative AI stuff, helping me create D&D ideas and small themes here and there, or like food grocery lists, or like plan out weight loss things. I've used it for little things here and there over the years, so I have a small amount of like interactions with it, but my overall stance on it has been, well, negative, so I kind of avoided it. However, the flip side, as someone who has been practicing art a lot and has been growing both in the 3D and 2D and traditional mediums, as well as someone who's paid for a lot of art over the years, from my perspective, I think the biggest false argument that's been coming up is the idea of, you bought a piece of artwork, so you own this now, so now you can use this for whatever you want. Because on paper that sounds well and good, like, oh, I went and bought a chocolate bar, so now I can just use the chocolate bar in a cake because I can't. Why not? Which would be true. However, it's a different story when you're like, I bought a chocolate bar and I can now tear that chocolate bar apart perfectly and remake it into smaller, slightly less quality chocolate bars anytime I want for free. That's the difference, is you're taking not necessarily the art piece itself, but you're taking the actual artist's techniques and their brush styles and all of that, and you're teaching the AI, hey, try to copy this style and make another one. So it's actually learning from their artistic style and both the education and the trial and error and all of that stuff that they went through to try and replicate a piece, instead of just taking something that's yours. It's a whole nother story if you're the one who made the art piece and you're feeding it yourself, and then you're making art with that. I still don't really agree with it, because it feels like you're cheapening your own style with it, but it feels like that would be more okay than the alternative.
It's like taking a quality burger, cheapening every ingredient to make 15 shitty burgers. You had a good one, and now you just made 15 shitty ones. And I don't see any artist wanting to put their own artwork through AI for improvement, when it's in fact just going to be more like mass production. Sorry, not improvement, mass production. Which is, I've learned through everything, mass production has never been a huge, it's more like, it's the idea of quantity over quality, which when it comes to certain things like art, you don't want that. I guess for me, it's like, I just hate art, AI in general, like, with a passion.
What's your background with art?
A lot of it's more on the commission side. I'm a huge art lover. I have an older brother who does art. I have a younger sister who does art. I have a little brother who writes stories and makes up stories all the time. I come from a family who's huge on art. I've always been a huge appreciator. I've always loved it. It's always been a huge part of my life of just, like, appreciating and loving it. I've tried to create some myself. Wasn't my thing. I'm just not good at it. I prefer the more technical stuff, programming and editing, and some could even say editing is a type of art, and programming and making games is a type of art. But past that, I've always come from a background of loving and appreciating art and just in general. So when I see things like AI start popping up, I immediately hated it. Has no soul to it. Has no background to it. Has no person I can connect to. Like, oh, you made a prompt? Congratulations. You wrote a sentence a fifth grader could write, and AI did the rest. It's just shitty. It's bad. I don't like it. So I've never liked AI art, and will always hate AI art, or AI in general. Don't get me wrong, the couple uses that you stated, I won't lie. I've used it once before. So I was in a rush and I needed a letter for a D&D game, so I had it write a letter. I did it once. A player read it in full, took a piece off of it that I didn't mean for it to be intended, and I had to run with it. And ever since then, I refused to use AI for my D&D game. Could be also a fault of me for not proofreading it, but also still, to me, it's just...
Quality control, at least on the user side, always is part of that, right? Checking through your own work to make sure it's actually okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when it comes to at least AI art specifically, that's not really something that can happen, because even if somebody did see a fault with the AI's generation, all they could try to do is generate more. They can't really fix it because, again, they didn't make it.
Or
Again,
Photoshop.
they didn't make
They could try to Photoshop, but then that
or
leads
try
to defamations in the art.
Yeah, but even if you're going through and editing in Photoshop, you can never fix everything that goes wrong with AI. That's just kind of the problem. And even if it was a perfect copy, that would probably just lean more into the side of things of you're essentially stealing the artistic style from somebody else rather than actually having your own voice in the art sphere. Which, while I understand the concept of being able to buy something, own it, and use it for what you want, that's only true as long as you're following the guidelines of the person you bought it from. And the biggest thing that I want to touch up here is most of the backlash of like these controversies, because this isn't the first time it's happened, is people going after others for their TOSs, which most of the time your TOS is there as an artist to protect you because there are certain things you don't want your art used for, such as being fed into an algorithm and to pumped out copies that are kind of bad. But even if they were good copies, they would probably still stand by the fact they don't want someone to do that for multiple reasons. One, it feels bad. It feels bad to work really, really hard on something and then have somebody else come and just like rip it to pieces to make clones that are just like crappy copies and be like, oh guys, look at my art, rather than just come back to you as a reoccurring commissioner to get another piece from. Because at the end of the day, most artists who are good enough that you want to take their art probably have to put a lot of time and effort into it to even get that far. So more than likely, this is a good source of like side income for them. So it's twofold, that you're taking away income, but you're also killing motivation while kind of taking away from the aspect of you wouldn't do this if you respected them. You only do this because you don't care.
Yeah. Also, the thing about TOSs, I mean, lucky enough around for this most recent thing is I didn't see a lot of people going after their TOS. Actually, a lot of people were more criticizing of the person, being like, hey, you broke the TOS of the person you commissioned, and then were ridiculed and like basically immediately attacked on all fronts about it.
Yeah, I think it might have been a side one that I saw, but there was like a whole chain that I saw from one of the most recent ones that were talking about the TOS having like absorbent things, but it was essentially just boiling down to, hey, if you use my stuff for like generative AI or just in malice ways, that it's not allowed, and you lose rights to the art piece if you go and do something dumb with it, basically.
Which I agree with. I mean, artists are allowed to have TLSs for their artwork. It's like piece of music. You buy a piece of music, doesn't mean all of a sudden you can distribute it as much as you want. Doesn't mean you can do whatever you want with it just because you bought it. You are still under a TOS, just like games. Same thing, funny enough, with video games. You buy a video game, you're still under a list of requirements of things you're not allowed to do. Most of it's all about redistributing, not being allowed to just sell it as your own. Things like that.
Or taking assets, or things like that.
There is a bunch of stuff.
Repurposing parts of it are always usually the biggest thing is, and for artists, it's all about one style, and like how you go about doing your artwork is something that you develop as you learn as an artist, whether that be through having your lines go a certain way or whatever it might be. There's an arc to learning, and as you start to hit your highs, the more advanced like techniques, you end up with a unique style that boils down to you. It might fit into a niche of styles, but at the end of the day, it'll be unique to that artist, which is why if you could copy it one for one, all you're doing is hurting the person that you're trying to emulate. At the end of the day, you're taking from their potential pools of people who would actually enjoy their art. Because if they toss around an AI copy of the person's artwork, if that were to blow up instead of their actual artwork, you'd run into a situation where people would think they were copying an AI image instead of it the other way around, which absolutely can happen in an internet like ours where things blow up for no reason.
I have seen it happen where people were praising one person, they're like, oh, hey, you copied this other person. Reality, they were copying them. It's a whole ordeal that's really complicated because a lot of people see the first thing that blows up and think that's the original. No one really likes to go backwards and check for actual where's the original came from.
Overall, I can definitely say that I have a hard stance on it, but that's just because I also understand that most of the people who use AI to make art and things like that, there's usually only a handful of reasons you might. I can kind of give it a pass if it's like some kid because they're making a thumbnail, because I recall the generations of furries that came up to this point, which is essentially just copying whatever cute avatar you saw or whatever thumbnail you saw. I'm sure there's 1,000,001 of the same thumbnail of Lil Fur running around with the same ass fucking wolf furry photo that's still like 20 years old now. So I understand
Probably.
the desire to get something unique to yourself when you have no way or method of doing it. That I can understand. That's probably the only time I'm like, whatever. I kind of understand. Even then, it's probably not okay. But at that point, that one image has been plagiarized so much to the point where, cool, that one dude has a blue version of it because he threw it into a generator. It doesn't matter. But when we're talking about people who do have funds and money and are older and they do understand the work that goes into these projects and pieces, to go out of your way to save up funds or do what you have to do to get that piece, to then take that piece and basically be like, well, now I'm gonna fuck it up because I'm just gonna use it like it's disposable. It feels incredibly insulting that someone would overlook the fact that they're more or less spitting in the face of the person that they've admired the work of, all for the sake of something that will ultimately be a shittier version of what they could have made you anyways.
That, and what's even like funnier is that they're doing it and then making it worse. This might come from a bias of someone who genuinely hates all AI art, and anytime I see it, I always think it's like the worst piece of shit you've ever seen. But they always end up making it worse than what the original is. Either it ruins the lighting source, it adds weird things it shouldn't, does like a random defect to it. It always does something that ruins the original artwork. And I don't care if you're like, oh, but it looks so good. No, it doesn't. It's weird, it's ugly, and it looks like shit.
I can say that I agree. Most of the time it does look worse, but I also have the firm stance that even if it looked perfect, it wouldn't change the fact that what you're doing is, what I'm saying is if it didn't. Let's just imagine for a moment that it did make it better. It somehow made a perfect, I know, but if it made a perfect recreation of their style, made a great art piece, and you couldn't tell, even then, I stand by the fact that you probably shouldn't, because it's still just you insulting and misusing the artist's work for your own benefit. Even in a situation like that, and even if they did manage to replicate it perfectly, I don't think that justifies going out of your way to misuse the artwork that you've gotten.
I agree. I also just can't imagine, because fuck you, I will never ever think that.
That's just you being stubborn. Only
And
because,
being
at
stubborn.
least for me, I've seen where AI has come and where it's going, and I could definitely see a world where if you took like a simple 2D drawing, I could see an AI being able to recreate that eventually. I don't think
But
they
in my
should,
heart,
and I
it
don't
will
think
always
it's
be.
okay. But I also just think that AI in general has been pushed to the point where it's just kind of, it's something that they keep trying to force to make it work, to make it part of our lives, and it just isn't, except for those who want to overlook everything bad about it for the small amount of benefit. Because there are some benefits, which is things like being able to like quickly draft lists or things like that. There are very small niches where it fits in really well, and it can work great for helping you put together stuff. But the flip side is it shouldn't be used to steal or plagiarize or take people's works, whether that be their words or their brushes. We're not going to get into the environmental impact of all of this because we already know it's atrocious. But honing in on our main topic and our concluding points, do your best, do your due diligence to try and stick to commissioning and getting art, or making it yourself if you can. It is insulting, and it is usually against someone's TOS to take their art and throw it into a generator. It is different if they give you permission, but even if you're a starting artist and your art isn't very good, I still don't recommend having people do this with your art. It's not worth it. At the end of the day, it's much better for artists as a whole to stand collectively against this, because even if it's okay in niche situations, the overall attitude towards it should stay negative. I think that wall, that bar of immediate hatred towards it is something that actually protects art. It's one of those things where you should feel ashamed for using AI art. I think that's okay because it works as a buffer. It helps protect us from exploitative people who want to abuse it on a whole scale. Because if there's a stigma against it and society has agreed as a whole that it's wrong to do it, then it helps to prevent people from overstepping and misusing, and protects littler artists who don't have the voice to protect themselves. Your closing thoughts?
Agreed. You don't don't use AI. Don't take an artist's commissioned work or even just art you found online, and don't try to recreate stuff using AI. It always ends up being worse. You're hurting the environment. You're hurting the commissioned artists. You're overall just not being it's not good. I know most people don't have bad intentions. I've met plenty of people who used AI art because they thought it was cool that they could create their character using this thing in a style and not have to worry about having to spend money, especially when you're poor and broke and don't have that. But you're hurting people more than you are satisfying that niche of yours, especially when you start posting it and like using it everywhere. I have come to hate AI art, and I will always hate it. And yeah,
I'm cutting
weird
this out.
correlation.
I'm cutting it
There's a
out.
weird
Fuck you.
correlation.
It's not going in.
Fuck you. Don't use AI when you commission art. It's simple as that.
An outro, go.
Goodbye. Thank you everyone for watching the video. Like, subscribe, bullshit.
Ta-ta, everybody. Thanks for stopping in. We'll see you next week for our next weird topic of whatever the fuck it might be.